Hi. Okay, today we are going to discuss Aristotle. Aristotle. And to begin with, we need to get a handle on his metaphysics. Now, Aristotle, much like Socrates before him, had to meet the theoretical challenge posed by the contradiction between Heraclitus and Parmenides. And he does that in his metaphysics. Recall, Parmenides, the rationalist, claimed that being is simply that which is. That which is not, cannot be, and can't even be spoken of. That is, nothingness is unintelligible to us rationally. Doesn't make any rational sense, can't be used to understand the natural universe. But the problem is, when things change, they in a sense become not what they are, and rationally, nothingness is important. When there's multiplicity, when there are two things, I am not this chalkboard, to distinguish between these two things, we have to use nothingness. So change, multiplicity, and flux, everything that our senses give us, cannot be from a rationalist perspective. Now, on the other hand, Heraclitus before him, the empiricist, argued, trusting his senses, that everything was in a constant state of change, multiplicity, and flux, and this change makes a certain kind of rational sense to us in terms of logos. So, right, you've got one theorist saying that change, multiplicity, and flux are constants. You've got another claiming that change, multiplicity, and flux rationally cannot be. So, we found Socrates in a situation where he was unable to make a claim to knowledge. After Socrates, his student Plato came onto the scene and tried to meet this challenge with his theory of the forms. Now, Plato's student, Aristotle, had in some senses similar and some senses distinct theories in order to meet this challenge of Heraclitus and Parmenides, and largely the idea in both in both Plato and in Aristotle is to, in a sense, let both Heraclitus and Parmenides be right. Now, what we're going to take a look at today is Aristotle's solution, right? And Aristotle's solution has to do with drawing a distinction between what he calls forms, or essences, and substances, or accidents, right? And to illustrate this, well, I've got my cat Sheldon here, right? Now, as you can see, he's a black and white cat, right? Tuxedo cat to some, cow cat to others. Well, check him out. He's kind of a big boy. That's right, you're on TV, Sheldon. That's right. He does tricks. I'm not going to show you any of his tricks today. Maybe if you're good in the future. He can walk on his hind legs. He likes to lick his tail and gets upset if I get in the way of him licking his tail. He's a he, right? And he's kind of a sweetie, except when he's not. So, anyhow, this is my cat Sheldon. Now, given everything I just told you about my cat Sheldon, his name, the fact that he's male, a little bit of a shitball right now, and all of these other properties, black and white, he, big, does tricks, sitting on my lap right now, etc. What did you just learn about what a cat is? Right? Could you tell me something general about cats? Or did I just tell you about things that are specific to my cat? Well, Sheldon's a cat. And a cat's a cat today, just like a cat was a cat 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And, you know, as long as there have been cats, cats have been what they are. Right? There's no change to the whatness of a thing. The form or the essence of cat remains permanent. Right? However, particular cats that we encounter with our senses come into being, they pass away. Believe it or not, this big guy, yeah, that's right, you're big, buddy. This big guy used to be a little teeny tiny kitten. Used to fit in the palm of one hand. Now look. So, right, particular things, in terms of their accidental properties, which we sense, which we see, which we encounter in experience, they're subject to change. right? But the essence or form of a thing is not, right? Nor are there two essences or forms of catness, right? What a cat is can only be one thing. I say cat, I'm talking about one particular kind of thing. But there are many cats, right? So, in a sense, Heraclitus gets to be right in terms of the accidental attributes of a thing, which we see all the bloody time. Experience. I'm just going to let. There are many cats, and all of these things
are in a constant state of flux. You can't step into the state more than twice. But I still rationally know what a cat is. And whether it's a kitten as big as my palm, or a big huggabaloo like Sheldon here, right? A cat is still a cat. And rationally, I can get to this changeless, permanent, stable, and not subject to flux kind of idea. Right? So Parmenides, from his rationalist perspective, gets to be right as well. Now, to explain change, to explain how this fairly big black and white jerk here, right, got to be so big, right, got to be what he is, changes and will continue to change throughout his course as an existing cat, right? Well, he described what he called the process of becoming. In a sense, Sheldon is becoming what he is, right? He has a certain potential that he's actualizing, right? So change can be understood in terms of this movement between potential and actual, right? So, right, in a sense, when Sheldon was a kitten, he had in him, in his formal structure, everything he needed to become the big black and white cat that he is right now. Right? Just like an acorn, already in it, contained in form or essence, is everything that it needs to become an oak tree. Kittens don't become ducks. Acorns don't become squirrels. Right? Acorns become oak trees. Kittens become cats. Isn't that right, buddy? Right? So, right, already within us, by virtue of our essence or form, right, we're simply becoming what we are. And all of motion can be understood in that way. So in a sense, Heraclitus gets to be right, and things are in a constant state of change. There's multiplicity and flux. And change can be understood rationally, right, in terms of this movement between potential and actual, right? And in terms of Parmenides, what a thing really is, its whatness, isn't subject to change, right? There's no multiplicity, and there's no flux, right? Now, importantly for Aristotle, right, because Plato claimed that forms and essences were completely different from one another, existed even in different realms, right? Well, according to Aristotle, right, the distinction between a form and an essence can only be made in thought. It's an abstraction, right? It's an idea that we form of catness after experiencing lots and lots of cats, right? Whereas Plato claimed that the idea was what the thing really is, and poor Sheldon here was just a particular imitation of the perfect idea of cat. Now, Aristotle's metaphysics is going to become necessary to understand when we turn to the Nicomachean Ethics, which is, I think, the best all-around book in the history of philosophy. It's one part hard philosophy. It's one part, as the title suggests, ethics. It's one part child-rearing manual. Right? It's one part self-help book. And it's the most general panacea of a book that the history of Western philosophy, at least in ancient times, produced. So, we'll turn to that next.